This episode of The Dog Show features Michelle Suarez. Michelle is the manager of rescue and behaviour programs at Humane Society Silicon Valley. She lends her experience to help save animals, provide training, and aid the adoption process. In the interview, we discuss the puppy behavioural problems caused by lockdowns and how you can train a puppy for post-pandemic life. Michelle, welcome to The Dog Show. Thanks for coming on.
Hello, nice to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. You've got so much experience working with shelters and as a dog trainer as well, so I'm sure you can share some great insights with the audience today.
Absolutely, I'm excited.
Okay, so before we jump into all the nitty-gritty of the topic today, I'd like to ask you about yourself. Do you have a dog?
I've actually got 4 dogs.
Of course you do.
Right? So with my dogs, how I got into animal welfare was adopting my first dog. There was 1 year where I was literally adopting a puppy, I think every 3 months. So I've had up to 7 dogs in my household, most of them Siberian Huskies, because I was doing dog sledding when I first got into animal welfare and started with Bay Area Siberian Husky Rescue. Right now, I do have 2 Huskies that I got from Bay Area Siberian Husky Rescue, and then 2 small mutts that I adopted from the Humane Society Silicon Valley.
Okay. So do you get, I guess roped in isn't the right term to say, but do you kind of get roped into adopting more dogs than you would normally because you work there?
You know, it's really one of the reasons I got into animal welfare was realizing I can't adopt a puppy every 3 months.
Yeah.
So the 2 small mutts that I've gotten from here they're actually what people call foster failures. I get roped in to foster puppies, especially puppies with medical or behavior issues. And one of the puppies that I adopted was a behavior issue puppy, and then another one was actually a medical issue. It was a puppy that we thought was going to lose both of his eyes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So do you find, if you're there for adopting dogs that have failed with foster families, potentially because of behavioural issues, do you find it hard to transition them into a household with other dogs?
Not at all, actually, especially for animals who are displaying some behavioral issues. Having canine role models in the home is super helpful. So for my puppy, when I was fostering it, having those confident adult dogs in my household helped her come a long way. And it just got to the point where we got attached to her and she was the right fit for our household. And she was also willing to do dog sledding, even as a smaller dog. So we decided to keep her. But yeah, definitely saying no after you've put so much care to an animal, not keeping them is really hard. A lot of our foster families struggle spending so much, time with these animals and then being able to say goodbye and put them up for adoptions. But we continue to do so and continue to foster so we can give other animals that opportunity to find homes.
Forgive me to kind of going on a segue here, but we don't have a lot of snow here in Australia. I'm interested to hear more about sledding with dogs. Is that like a sport that you do? Is it a hobby? How would you describe it?
It could actually be both. And surprisingly so, we're not getting a lot of snow in California either.
Okay.
So dog sledding turns into dog carting. You can actually use a bike, an adult tricycle. We've used ATVs when we have a lot of dogs, and you attach them on with a long line, and as a team, they pull whatever it is that you're attaching them to. And it's a lot of fun. I do it more as a hobby. There are people that do it competitively as well.
Okay, and the Huskies are obviously the perfect type of dog for that as well, or?
Absolutely, but I've found, because I've put all of my dogs on the dog sled team, that any dog can actually learn to dog sled. I've had my lab and my small mixes also on the line. The smaller dogs don't necessarily pull, but they'll run with the team. And almost any breed dog can learn to pull.
Okay. That's interesting to know. So tell me more about Humane Society Silicon Valley then. How did you end up there? I know you've been there for almost 15 years now.
Yes. So I was at the time just finished getting my certification to be a dog trainer. and was looking to be able to provide my knowledge to the shelter animals. And so I applied for a position here in the behavior department where I would be able to start working with the animals that do need some behavior support before they are ready for adoptions.
Mm.
So I've been doing that on the behavior team for these past 14 years, and it has been very rewarding.
Okay. And what type of problems do you typically see with dogs before they need to be home, like before they're ready to be homed?
We get all types of behaviors. The most common ones I think that we get are animals that are not well socialized with humans.
Mm.
And so they are shy and fearful and are learning to trust new people. And so getting them started on being able to positively meet new people and have some sort of plan in place for them to start making that interaction with someone who's going to be adopting them is huge. Then we get a lot of the times people will adopt an animal and not do a lot of training with them. And that cute puppy then becomes that young, large adolescent adult that has no manners. So teaching that adult, adolescent, larger dog some manners helps a lot in finding them a new home. And then the animals that are just used to, they have guarding instincts, and so they might guard resources from other animals, and teaching them how to be managed and not guard, because a lot of adopters are looking to add to their household. So guarding from the other animals or the people in the home isn't the best thing.
Do you have a time frame that you're working towards when a new dog comes in to then home it, or is that dependent on the situation?
Honestly, the sooner we can get it into the home, the better. We start seeing that if animals are in a shelter environment for more than 14 days, they'll start to deteriorate.
All
So, as
right.
soon as we can figure out what it is they need, what type of training plan they need, we'll make them available for adoptions. And then we offer the adopters support to continue the training in the home environment. So, we never want to get the animal to be perfectly trained, because by that time, then you're running against time to keep them from deteriorating in your care. You want to just get that plan in place that you can then talk to adopters about. This is what this dog needs. We're going to give this training support. Are you, willing to take this on in your home? Is this a good fit for you? And we've gotten several animals adopted that way. We offer training scholarships, free training classes, in addition to support from our behavior team, which helps a lot.
Cool, cool. So I know that puppy, puppy or dog adoption in general has skyrocketed in the last couple of months. A lot more people were at home with lockdowns and things like that. Uh, but what I understand is that could potentially cause some issues once people are back in the office and things like that. Is that right?
Absolutely. So I think the biggest thing with that is that the animals have gotten an opportunity to become really attached to their owners being there all the time. And so you have two groups of animals. You have the animals that used to be okay being left alone for long periods of time because their owners used to be at work. They're going to have to learn how to be alone again. And then you've got animals, especially the puppies, who have never had to be left alone for long lengths of time, and learning how to be relaxed and comfortable and confident when their owners are at work is going to be a huge transition for them. So starting that as soon as possible is going to make a huge difference to the success of that animal in the household.
What behaviors do you imagine could come from a puppy that's used to being having people around, but then all of a sudden they're left by themselves?
The biggest thing that you're going to see first is destruction.
Mm.
Animals not used to knowing what to do when their human is not around, in addition to animals being distressed, not understanding why their human is not around. So if they're not properly confined, they can get destructive in the household. There's some animals that may get anxiety being left alone for the first time. And so that could require, both medical and behavior intervention to get them comfortable and used to being left alone. The other thing is animals hopefully are going to start getting exposed to more people. There's going to be some that have had more exposure than others. So also getting comfortable to seeing more people around when they're out and about with their families, because families are going to want to start getting out there again
Mm.
and exploring with their dog.
Yeah, that's something I didn't think about as much as that socialization aspect. If the
Mm.
dog's like whole existence has been, in a situation where they're not regularly socialized with animals or, sorry, excuse me, with animals or people, then that could be another issue.
Absolutely. If they are not used to interacting with strangers or strange dogs, that's something that they're going to have to learn. Some animals are going to be naturally inclined and are going to be okay with it. Some of them may have already missed some of that critical developmental stage, and they're going to have to get worked into being more comfortable around that. I mean, for the animals, especially, just like humans didn't want to leave the household during this pandemic time, if they stayed in their household, this entire time with their animals, then the animals just leaving the house, even just walking out the front door, is going to be a new experience for them that they're going to have to get used to.
Okay, so let's talk about an action plan then. Let's say that I adopted a puppy during a lockdown, and now I'm thinking about, okay, I need to get back to work. We need to start living a more active lifestyle than what we were previously. What would you recommend?
So the very first thing I would do is actually write out what your current schedule with your puppy, what does that look like? And then go back and write out another schedule of what you want it to look like now that you're going to be out and about and socialized. And you're going to want to transition slowly your puppy to that new schedule, and start adjusting that schedule slowly. Like, in the mornings we usually stay home, but now you're going to need to learn to stay home alone. So start practicing before you have to go back to work, leaving your puppy alone in the morning times or not paying attention if you're used to giving them all of that attention. So the more that you can transition it slowly, the easier it's going to be for your puppy to adjust. And then also the more that you can get them used to what their schedule is going to be and provide that consistent schedule, they're going to catch on. Animals thrive on consistency and schedule, and they get used to when they have breakfast and when they have lunch and when they have dinner, when potty times are. And so you're going to have to adjust it, and being able to adjust it slowly so that they catch on, okay, things are changing, but there's still going to be some consistency to it.
Okay, so what you're saying is, like, rather than going from situation A to situation B, you try and create a path in the middle, which is like slowly 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there, and just getting them used to a new schedule.
Correct. Yeah, and depending on how your puppy's responding, making those baby steps smaller. So making that transition even slower. If they're handling it really well, then you can kind of accelerate a little bit more the transition, but definitely starting sooner rather than later, and creating that transition plan to where you want to be.
Is there anything you can do in the household to help with that transition, like with crate training and things like that?
Absolutely. So, depending on how long you're going to want to leave your puppy home alone, you're going to look at what the proper confinement area will be for your pet. Is it just an hour? Is it a couple of hours? Because the longer that you leave them, the bigger confinement area you're probably going to want to find them. In addition to, depending on how long you're going to leave them, you might need to even also recruit someone to come in and give them that potty break in the middle of the day. Ideally, 6 to 8 hours max, and that's pushing it. You probably want to go over, about 6 hours between potty breaks, and having someone, if you can't be there for 8 hours, being able to come in and give that potty break, whether it's a friend, a relative, or recruiting a dog walker, and then getting your animal used to that person coming in and being involved with caring for them. For smaller time frames, a crate is appropriate. For bigger time frames, you might even be looking at a room, or a secure enclosed area outside, depending on how long you plan to leave your pup alone.
That idea about bringing in the dog walker is something I didn't think about as well. If you're going to be out for 6 to 8 hours, obviously they want to be able to go to the potty. So
Yeah. Another thing to consider is also doggy daycare. Picking 2 to 3 times a week that you can drop off your puppy to get that dog socialization, especially for those that need to get a little bit more comfortable with getting used to unfamiliar dogs. Gets your puppy tired, and then when you're tired from work, both of you guys are ready to kind of chill and nap in the evening.
yeah, rather than them you getting home from work and you're tired and all they want to do is play.
Exactly.
Yeah. Are there any other behaviors you could be teaching your dog at home that will help with this transition?
Absolutely. So, I mean, just starting to engage now in basic training and regularly is going to help mentally stimulate your pup. Starting to identify what kind of things that your puppy can do to self entertain themselves when they're safe and alone. So, start introducing, puzzle feeders or, Nyla bones to start to get an idea of what you can leave your pup alone to do with without you being there and providing that interactive play. Um, and then when you do that interactive play, I always recommend you play first for a little while and then you give a feeding because ultimately then that will induce a daily nap time so that when they're alone, the other thing it's going to encourage them is to sleep when they're alone. So start building those kind of things into their schedule and getting them used to you not giving them a lot of attention during that time frame that you are going to eventually not be at home and that they're going to have to be relaxed without that constant human interaction.
That makes a lot of sense. And it's okay for dogs to sleep a long time, right? They sleep a lot more than we do.
Absolutely. So just kind of coordinating, getting them tired so that when you're leaving alone, they're sleeping as well.
Well, thanks for those tips, Michelle. It sounds like if I had to summarize it, you're talking about planning a schedule for the transition and taking things slowly, but also thinking about ways you can get your dog used to either being alone or opportunities to interact with people or dogs and outside, such as daycare or having a dog walker come in. Just getting a little bit creative with the transition and being proactive about how you approach it.
Absolutely. And remembering that if you're struggling, there are resources out there. Depending on the needs of your puppy, you can look into a private trainer to work with one on one. If your puppy is already comfortable with people and other dogs, starting group classes, learning, basic manners with other people around, obviously at a safe distance. So remembering to reach out to those resources also sooner rather than later.
Cool. So, where can people find out more about the Humane Society Silicon Valley and what you're doing?
We have a website, www.hssv.org, and all the work that we do is on that website. In addition to our social media pages are linked onto it.
Perfect. Well, I'll share that in the show notes. But thanks so much for coming on and talking about the transition from lockdown to post pandemic life for dog owners.
Awesome. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Michelle.